Hey guys, welcome to the Nikki Made leather clutch tutorial. If you purchased the kit for this, you should have everything you need inside your kit and you can follow this tutorial from beginning to end. If not, you can go to NIKKIMADE.com and see if there is a pattern available for purchase for this tutorial, and you can follow along if you have materials and supplies. Happy creating! I'm gonna cut this off right where the teeth are, and then for your main piece, you don't need both pieces to measure where the zipper placement should be. For your main piece, you always want your zipper to start and end at, I like to do 1 inch away from the edge. If you want to do more, do more. It's a visual thing. It's completely up to you. I like to apply my zipper 1 inch away from the edge. So I've already cut off the excess tape starting from the zipper teeth, which I'll probably cut that off too since I am using a domestic machine. If you are using a industrial machine, you can just leave that because it'll zip right over that piece, and no, it will not damage your machine or your needle. I've done that multiple times, but because we're going to put a zipper tab at the end so we don't have a raw edge, then just cut off those teeth so it can make it a little easier to stitch over. Make that pretty even, and then you're going to measure 1 inch away from the edge. Your zipper will be placed at the top of your leather. So if we started it at 1 inch, we will end it at 1 inch and just cut off that excess piece of zipper. Our zipper placement will be right about here. So with the zipper tabs, because I do not like raw edges, a little bit of edge coat you have in your kit, you can just take your edge coat and apply it just to this one piece. You'll have a piece at the end of your zipper, and then you'll have a tab piece at the beginning of your zipper. All right, so you're gonna take your edge coat. I'm using a tan edge coat and a Q-tip because I don't want to waste any daubers on this little piece. It makes no sense. So you will take your zipper tab, line it up with your zipper just to make sure we're using the right side. So you're gonna take your zipper tab, your Q-tip, and your edge coat and just do a nice clean line. And that's just because I don't want it to look raw. That's it. So how it looks right now, I don't like that. So I'm gonna put edge coat just on that section because that is the only section that you'll see. Everything else will be sewn into the bag. I don't like raw edges, some people do, to each his own. So I'm gonna take a thin layer of edge coat and apply that to my zipper tab. So we have some color to match our tab. Seamless versus leaving it raw like this. Edge coat your tabs because it is added to your kit. If you don't have a kit, you might just have to leave it raw, but again, it's a preference. So we'll let that dry for about 5-10 minutes, and then we'll move on to applying our tabs to our zipper. All right, so you should have a small thing of double-sided tape. My best friend when I am sewing. Double-sided tape is a game changer, okay? So you're gonna take your double-sided tape and your tab piece that has the edge coat on it, and just apply a piece of tape on that area. Let's cut that off. Or you can just measure it. Cut your double-sided tape and then apply it to your piece. Whatever is easier for you. Close your zipper enough to where there's a little bit of space at the end, but also so that your pulley doesn't pull all the way outside of the zipper. Please be mindful of that. Just close it as much as you can, because you want these areas right here to be as close to each other as they can be. Take your zipper tab, remove the covering for the tape, and then apply that to the edge, maybe like 1/8 of an inch on the edge of your zipper. And you want it to look just like that. Now again, usually I would fold this under and stitch it into place, but because we're using a domestic machine, we don't want there to be too many layers for the needle to have to go through. So we're just gonna use this basic application. That way you can still close your zipper and open it. And I want you to repeat those same steps on the opposite side. All right, making sure it's in place really good. So now you're gonna take your zipper tab, close up the tape on your zipper. Close the tape on your zipper. Apply that to the edge, maybe about 1/8 of an inch of the zipper tape. Okay, and at this point, we are going to fold this piece under and do the same thing. But since we don't have double-sided tape back here, you're gonna put the double-sided tape on the back as well, for a long piece that goes across the whole thing. Take the top layer of your double-sided tape off and then fold that completely over. So when we're stitching, this will be the portion that we're very mindful of how we stitch it, just because the needle on a domestic machine is very delicate. So I'm going to show you how to walk the dog to make sure there's no hiccups. You'll stitch it going across first, and then once you stitch it closed, you'll cut off the excess piece of leather. So you're gonna do the same thing to the opposite end of your zipper. Make sure it is front side up. Now again, you do not have to use a domestic machine, but if this is all that you have, the leather is thin enough for this machine. Please, if you have an industrial machine, please use that. It'll sew this piece in no time. I just feel like with a domestic machine and leather, you just have to be very delicate with it. We just finished sewing on the zipper tabs. So I want you to pull out your lining piece. Then you'll take your double-sided tape again and apply that to the edge of your piece. And then cut that off. Then you're going to take off the top layer, which is the covering, to expose the sticky part of the tape. You'll take that off. And then you're gonna fold it down by like 1/4 of an inch. You do not want any part of this bag to have raw edges. That includes the lining going all the way across. And you'll do that to the opposite side of your lining as well. And you'll take your zipper and notice the pull is faced up. You're going to apply double-sided tape on each side. Now we're gonna work with the main pieces of our leather. So this is the top portion of your bag. I want you to edge coat both pieces. Just give it a nice thin layer of edge coat. And again, I'm gonna use my Q-tips because I don't wanna waste any daubers, so we get real innovative and we don't wanna waste things. Once you're finished with that piece, go ahead and set it off to the side, allow it to dry, and then do your second piece the same way. All right, so after your pieces have dried, the next thing we want to do is add our zipper to both of our pieces and then attach our lining. You should have already added double-sided tape to the top piece of your lining and folded it down by 1/4 of an inch. So it should look like this. We'll just start with one piece and you are going to duplicate the same thing on the other piece. So now we'll take one of our pieces, figure out which side you're gonna attach your zipper, if it's this way or this way, whatever side it is. Take off the double-sided tape. Remember to line your piece up so that you have 1 inch on each end, and put it in between that inch. And it's only going to lay on your leather about 1/4 of an inch, or as much of the space that the double-sided tape covers on the zipper. Take your lining and place that down over the double-sided tape. We're gonna do a top stitch along the top of the base of your leather. Now again, if you are using a domestic machine, I will show you how to walk the dog, meaning walk your needle over this layered part, and that needle is a lot more delicate than an industrial machine needle. I'm using an industrial machine, it's just faster. So because you don't want to have any hiccups and you don't want to break your needle, then I'm going to show you how to walk over this piece and then you can finish stitching. At this point, when you hit your zipper, open it up, slide it past your feet, and then continue stitching. You're gonna sew your lining piece together before you sew the rest of your bag. So you'll flip it inside out, match up your pieces together. sew both of the side seams together. And then when it comes to the bottom portion of the lining, you're only going to sew these two sections. So the side seams together, and then when it comes to the bottom, you're just going to sew these two little openings. Leave about this much space open. Even if you left that much space open, leave some space open. So we can sew the lining at about 1/8 of an inch to 1/2 an inch wide. Now the reason why I start from the bottom first is because once you get up here, it gets a little tricky. Once you get to the top portion of the leather, it gets a little tricky, and you want to make sure you are only catching the lining and not the leather. You line up your pieces of lining together and try not to catch the leather as you are stitching. You want to avoid that. And then back stitch. And that is it for the lining. Really leave as much open as you want to. So let's just say I stopped it right there. I'm gonna back stitch and then do the other side the same way. Back stitch. Like if you just wanted to sew that much, that's fine. So a little more, back stitch. All right, now when it comes to the corners, you want to take them and make a box shape. So you'll open it up and you're gonna stitch it together like this, but back stitch now and go in a reverse. Make it as clean as you want to now that everything has been stitched together, and you should have something like this. Now I went off-roading a little bit. Nobody's gonna see that. Now your lining is stitched together. I'm gonna do the other corner in a second. The only opening should be that bottom piece. Okay, the last piece that we are going to work on is our wrist strap. So you should have your strip of leather, double-sided tape. Put that on the edge of one side, going all the way across. Alright, and then you're gonna take that off, that top layer of the double-sided tape off, fold it halfway across. So give it a half fold all the way across. Flatten it as you are folding it. Flatten it into place. And press it. Then I want you to do the same with the other end. If you have a industrial machine, you can stitch this just fine. If you have a domestic machine and you do not want to risk breaking your needle, take your strip and do a half fold, double-sided together so that it stays shut, and then just do a nice stitch line going across. You might have to walk the dog to eliminate the potential of your needle being broken. Always start with your stitch down into the leather. Do a back stitch. Stitch going right before this fold line. If you told back, I do that. If you told back, I recommend that. Alright, so the last couple steps that we have to finish is this little tab for our D-ring that's going to attach to the bag, and then the wrist strap attaches to the D-ring. So if you do not want to leave this as a raw edge, then I would recommend you take a Q-tip and your edge coat and go ahead and give that some color as well. And I would say you can edge coat every edge except for these two ends, because they will be folded like this and attached to the bag, so you won't see that edge, but you will see the top edge and the bottom of the edge. So to coordinate with the bag a little bit, and once you're done with that, set it aside and let it dry for like 5-10 minutes. What we'll be sewing together now is the base of our bag. So the same way we stitch our lining together, with the exception of leaving anything open, we're just gonna stitch it together going all the way around, including the bottom. So we'll stitch this side of the bag, the bottom of the bag, and then our other side of the bag, and one side will include our D-ring tab. So we'll save that for the last part that we stitch together, and then we'll stitch our corners the same way we did our lining. We'll take it, match it up together, do one stitch going across, and that piece will be done. Stitch all the way through and back stitch. Now we'll stitch the bottom. Line all your pieces up. We are going to apply that D-ring over the piece of leather. And because we have to turn our bag inside out, you are going to put this piece inside, anywhere alongside wherever you want your wrist strap to be. You can make it higher, or you can make it wherever in the center of the bag, at the bottom of the bag if you want to be different. This is going to be completely up to you. And again, if you are sewing on a domestic machine, I would say maybe you want to hand stitch this part, or it's best to just walk the dog along. If you have a piece of hardware, attach the hardware there instead. I don't know how it's going to be stitching over these multiple layers. We're going to start from the bottom. So I'll take this out for now. I'll stitch the area where I want to add my D-ring. So let's say I'm gonna start my stitch down here and go all the way up, and then scoop my D-ring in and then finish that stitch. But for now, I'm gonna leave that out. So here's about a good space. Make sure it's tight, and if you want to put some double-sided tape in the inside to keep this piece closed, you can. I'm not going to, I'm just gonna scoot that in there, but you wanna make sure you get as close to the D-ring as possible. You might even have to swap out regular foot for a zipper foot. So we're gonna put this in here and make sure it is exactly where I want it to be. I've already swapped out my foot so it can accommodate for the hardware that's right here, or the hump that's right here, hump of leather. And this way I'll be able to continue stitching without having any hiccups. If I would have left my other foot on there, it would have got caught up right here because it's too big. So move the bag over, because I didn't have the right size zipper foot. I could have kept it where it was when I was stitching, but I don't have that foot. So I had to turn my bag around. I want to place that together, and then I'm gonna finish my stitch right where I left off. I'll back stitch again. This foot does not pull the leather like I want it to, so I will have to guide the leather in and through this little area. This excess leather hanging out. So I have already switched my feet on my machine. I'm just gonna take the corners of the leather the same way we did with the lining. Open those up, align them together, and do a nice stitch going across. And then our bag will be somewhat complete. And again, with the seams, you can go ahead and flatten them out as you stitch if you have enough seam allowance to flatten out. I don't. I sewed it pretty close to the edge, maybe like 1/4 of an inch. So it's pretty tight right there. But you just want to make sure, even if you don't flatten out the seam allowance, lay one of the seam allowance to the side, lay the other one to the opposite side so you can still stitch going across with ease. And back stitch. The corner of my piece looks real ratchet, so I'm gonna cut all of that off and make it look nice and even. And that should be your corner once you stitch it. So I am out of gold clasp or hooks, so I'm just gonna grab any hook that I have. You should have one that matches the hardware in your piece. So I'm just going to attach the hardware to my wrist strap, put it in the center, fold that really good. Normally I would just sew this into the bag just in case you don't want a wrist strap on your bag. That's why we're just hooking it with this guy right here. So on the other end, we're just gonna sew that together and then edge coat it so it's clean. All right, now we're just gonna take our bag, go through the center of your lining. Again, your zipper should be open. Start from the corner of your piece and pull it out. I usually hate turning leather inside out, but this leather is very supple, so there won't be any scratches or indentions on the leather. It'll just come out nice and clean. And because of our corners, you want to go inside. Bottom and top corners, go inside and pucker everything out. Your seams should be lined up or as close together as possible. And then before you stitch up your lining, make sure all your corners are pushed out and straight. And then what you're gonna do is take your lining make sure that's even and nice. The lining, push it in. Going all the way across. And then give it a nice stitch line going across. So what I did was just push it in going this way. So what I did was push the lining in and then give it a nice stitch and then you'll be finished. Alright, that concludes the video for this tutorial. Hopefully you enjoyed making the leather clutch bag. If this was your first time making a leather clutch, please give yourself a pat on the back, especially if you ran into some challenges along the way. It is common, it happens, it takes time to get it right. So if you did not finish, it's okay. Pick it up and try it again on a different day. I will catch you on the next tutorial, and please remember, I did not become a bag maker overnight. Do not give up on yourself. All right, peace out.